Hello LEC fans, I'm Broxer and I'm here today to talk to you about caster curses. For years now, casters have been cursing our favorite teams from week 1 up until Worlds. But don't worry, that all changes today.
Hey Broxer, I've been working on my Fnatic monologue. Do you want to take a look?
Monologues? I don't think so.
Hey, Broxer, what about the XL Miracle Run? That sounds kind of crazy good, doesn't it?
You see, I've invented a new creative method called negative reinforcement. And with this, I think I've set the team on the right track.
Hey, Broxer, BDS, more like BDS tier, am I right? Oh, B A tier? Oh, B tier? What tier do you want them in?
The LEC lower bracket continues today.
What am I supposed to say? I'll say anything.
Welcome to day 2 of the elimination rounds here at the LEC season finals. Fnatic and XL Esports had a miraculous comeback in the summer split, but tonight one of their runs will come to an end as they fight for the right to challenge Team BDS in the next round. As we see our players arriving to the studio, both XL and Fnatic, I'm sure they will be quite nervous heading into today, as this could be the end of the road for their year. But first, addressing the elephant in the room. You guys okay? And I'm gonna keep this distance, I think.
I mean, we will be eventually. Good communication, maybe some couples therapy, and I think in the end we will get there, but we'll keep it low-key for now.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so as well.
No jinxing zone. So let's talk about Team BDS. Yesterday, they earned themselves a spot in the top 4. And of course, they get to go to Korea. At the very least, they get to play versus Golden Guardians, and maybe further than that, Broxer, which would be absolutely huge.
Yeah, I think for BDS this is absolutely massive. The only downside really is that once you've been to Korea and Worlds once, it becomes kind of addicting and you're kind of feeling like, you know, you have to be there every single year. But for this, you know, still newer team with a lot of young players, they're gonna get so much experience no matter what it goes, or no matter how it goes, and it could really help them going into next year.
Yeah, even yesterday felt like they might have gotten some experience. It was a 3-0, but at times it was quite sloppy. I think at times maybe a bit slow-paced as well. But in the end, able to manage it with the BDS formula of success. Once again, overgrouping around these objectives, playing around the priority that we saw, but also adding new picks throughout this playoff, like we saw with the Tristana as well. So just really putting more tools in their arsenal.
Yes, and I know we have our eyes on Worlds, and I'm sure they do as well, Broxer, but it's also about the possible title here in Europe, about Montpellier. So have you seen enough from BDS that you think that they still have something in the tank going forward?
Well, yesterday we talked about them potentially over-peaking already this year and maybe not being able to, you know, achieve anything more than they already have. But I think, you know, at this point, no one can really underestimate BDS because they're a really strong team. I think they showed really high highs both in yesterday's series as well as against G2. And for them, it's just going to be all about the consistency as well as being able to add new strategies to their playbook so they're not too predictable.
That is true, but for SK, that means it is the end of the road for them here in the LEC this year. And after their series, Lore caught up with their jungler.
And we're back here on this side of the LEC stage with Markun. Markun, thank you so much for joining me. I'm sorry the year doesn't end the way you expected, but I have to ask about the series. What do you think missed today against BDS? How do you reflect on what happened?
I think we just lacked so much decisiveness, and I think this week, or at least we had 4 weeks of scrims, right? And I think in scrims we found our groove, to be honest. Like, we were playing well, and I think in scrims we managed to play together. But then I think once we came to stage, I'm not sure what happened, but yeah, we stopped listening a bit to each other. And then against a team like BDS, like, your gameplay just falls apart when you do that.
And it's actually sad because even when I was talking to Exakik or the rest of the lineup, this is something that you guys kept on doing this year, unfortunately, not finding the groove that you had in scrims and transforming it to the stage, which is sad in the sense that whenever I see you guys together backstage, I know that the mood within the team is amazing. I know that you guys enjoy each other's presence really much. Can you talk me through what you guys built this year in terms of synergy and what do you think of the teammates you have and the team that took you that far actually into season finals?
I mean, this year we had a lot of ups and downs. But like the team mental won't stay good when you have ups and downs a lot, right? But I think in the end, we always try to pull through each other, and I think I could feel that even in the bad times, I felt like everyone was still in it together, and everyone was still fighting to win. Like even at our lowest points, I think in spring, end of spring, we were so out of it. But then we come back in summer, and the fire is still there, right? So I think that's just the good thing we had in this team. We had fire, but it just never transitioned into stage.
Is there anything that you would like to say to the audience that sticked around to say goodbye and thank you for this amazing year that you guys had?
Yeah, to the RSK fans, I mean, after 4 weeks of gameplay, like this is also not what I wanted to show, right? But yeah, I don't know, it just sucks. We suck. Sorry. There's not much we can do.
Berlin, please, one more time for SK. We had an amazing time watching you play. We're definitely looking forward to seeing you play next year, Markun. Thank you so much again for the interview.
It's lovely from Markun to do that interview, of course, because Roxa, I mean, those things are really, really difficult. And I guess in that moment, it's impossible to look back on everything they've achieved, but they should be proud. Unfortunately, it ends there.
Yeah, defeat interviews are for sure some of the most difficult you can do as a pro player. And I think Markun obviously was a little bit harsh on himself there, saying that they suck and all that. But I'm sure in a couple of days or weeks, he's going to be able to look back and see the positives as well, because that's what it's all about, right? Like, you're not going to be the winner every year. And whenever things are not going your way, you just have to take as many learning lessons as you can and do better next year.
Definitely so. It's BDS that won. BDS will be moving on. They'll be playing the winner of Excel versus Fnatic. And now it's time to continue our journey on the glorious rift of EMEA, where danger lurks around every corner. If you wish to participate on our quest, please gather with the rest of our adventure-seeking fans in the voting channel on discord.lec.gg or spam in Twitch chat. Here is my dear friend RPGS, who will take you through the quest.
Hello there, traveler. How can I help you today? Hello there, traveler. How can I help you today? He lies in wait for his arch-rival Kikis. Soon, he will have his revenge. But enough about that. Tell me about yourself. Fine weather today, hmm? Hello, fellow rats. At the agreed time, we shall rise. Gang, gang. So tell me, do you watch League? Are you excited for Worlds? Whew. You almost had me for a second. Nice try, Traveler, but there's no universe where NA can win an international trophy. This really makes me want some ice cream. Yum, yum. So tell me, what's your favorite narrative of the LEC? I could really use some ice cream right now. Yum, yum. Oh dear. Oh, 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 oh.
For our next quest, we're going to the Land of Kings, the LCK, where an old friend awaits. Who could it be?
My favorite memories with the Fnatic, I will say basically when I won the spring split and also the summer split, cause winning actually 2 times in a row, but I didn't know actually when I was in there, when I was in the Fnatic at the 2015, I was kind of having fun. It was like first year that I debuted, and it was like more just like trying to enjoy, like not actually just like feel the achievement. If I go back, I'll be like more happy. Yeah, I mean, Fnatic for the season final, like people are kind of memeing. I mean, they are in the losing bracket right now, but still like they are facing against XL, which is like they just got 3-0 by the Mid Lions. I mean, it's gotta be the step by step, right? Since they're at the bottom starting. So I think it's gotta be the most important thing is, as everyone knows, just try to get on the flow that, the winning streak. If I choose one player that I's on, I'll say this, it's gonna be the Humanoid. Because I think the meta right now, he can play a lot of the iconic his champion. And also, like right now, I think there's just so many options you get as a mid laner that, there's just so many player making, or you can be a hard carry. You can be focusing on the DPS. Like there's so many things that you can also sacrifice your lane and just try to help the jungle or the AD carry and the focus on top lane. And also he's a veteran player, so he got some experience. I think it's kind of the main key, or like I would say it's gonna be the main pieces of the roster. To Fnatic, the Globe fans, I'll say still really appreciated I still get a lot of the chat comments, a lot of like the DMs are from Fnatic fans, because I mean I only play 1 year. I mean it wasn't really impactful, but it was my first year. I mean still, I don't think if there was no Fnatic year, like there's no way like there's gonna be the Huni on 2023. I think that was the year that I shown my personality as a player, and also I think all the fans are like they are chanting my name. So I didn't actually get the chance a lot to play in LEC after that, but it's still really grateful to everyone who support me. I still feel really great.
We'll always support Huni. I also think it's quite interesting. He's like, yeah, the LEC is to build your personality as a player. And then you just go to LCK or whatever. But it's cool to hear from him.
Yeah.
And he's excited for Fnatic. And Fnatic is up versus XL. Welcome, Laura, by the way.
Thank you.
To the desk. I know that Goldberg is the only one not adhering to the dress code, but that's fine.
It's kind of blue. It's fine. It's kind of blue.
It's kind of blue. It's kind of blue. It's fine. But anyway, let's get into it then. Fnatic and XL, Laura, they have faced off so many times throughout kind of the years that they've both been in the league. But they're also two teams that are quite similar in that they made a lot of changes. They really ran with the format.
So many changes, honestly. I think it's 7 total when you look at both teams. And it's actually interesting to see that throughout all these changes, this iteration of both teams has been the most successful one, whereas the one that they tried to build initially that really, really didn't work. So honestly, props to the coaching staff for assembling the right pieces at the right time. We've been praising XL coaching staff, for instance. I think they got 2nd as coaching staff of the year. And rightfully so, because you have to be able to find the right players in desperate time and just bet on the fact that they're going to work together. And same goes for Fnatic, I feel.
Yeah, I think it's so impressive just between the two teams in terms of what they managed to do with the format. But I also think the pressure is on a very different scale. The branding in itself from these two teams could not be any more different. Fnatic has made their brand on just being a team that would always win, and that's why they're here. XL, on the other hand, their entire brand was not making playoffs. And with the changes that they finally made, they've been able to overcome this. Like the back-to-back 10s to 10s into finally going 2nd. This is for sure the best iteration.
Yes, I know, like we're being positive about the full year, and I think that's mostly about the end, that they got their you know what, together, I think, because it doesn't look good for the rest. And I think Excel and Fnatic both will have wanted to do a lot more with Winter, a lot more with Spring. But it's quite interesting, as you say, GB, that for both of them, it took them almost an entire year to get here. And we can't forget, they're still in elimination now, right? So it is an unbridled success, but they have a chance to save their season.
Oh, absolutely. But, you know, it's just weird that it's Fnatic versus XL again. You know, it was the same thing last year where it was to make it to Worlds, XL versus Fnatic. This time around, though, XL finally got the upper hand against them in the summer playoffs. And it also just feels like with the entire gameplay that's come through from XL recently and what they've been able to do with their changes, they've definitely been benefiting more from some of the more recent patches. And I think you can clearly see that in one of their all-star players like Odo as well, who's really been feeling himself lately.
Yeah, and that's going to be interesting because when you look at both these rosters, on one side, of the side of Fnatic, you have Trimby. On the other side, you have Odo, who are the two remaining ex-Rogue members who actually made finals last year in Malmö and won the finals. So yeah, just one of them is going to be able to push forward. And
this
really
is why you're worth your weight in gold, because you remind us of these nuggets. Indeed, that is huge. And the last time they met was in the summer playoffs. And it's quite interesting because when you look at what's at the horizon, right? If you win today, you make it at the very least to the World's qualifying series, which would be huge for XL, but also huge for Fnatic, who have barely ever missed out on Worlds, 2 times only.
Yeah, and it goes back to the thing again, right? For Fnatic, it should be in expectations. Like, the fact that they would miss Worlds, that would be devastation, especially from their fans as well. For XL as well, I think if they have their fans here, they're happy about being here, they want to push even further. But as it said, like, there's a lot different pressure coming in here. Once again, Fnatic expectation for XL, how much further can they carry it?
I'm wondering actually in the mindset of the player how much it weighs, because when you look at XL, they thought the season was doomed. They managed to save it, bring it to season finals. So for me, losing now is going to be even more heartbreaking because you're like one step away from reaching Korea. So that's, I don't know what's going to be the factor here, but the fact that both teams usually thrive under pressure and under elimination, I think we're in for like an exciting game.
Yes, I think so too. We're not going to have you for the rest of Ready Check, so I'd love to know, Lord. They of course faced off. XL got the upper hand of Fnatic at one point. What do they think will be the most important thing we have to look at in this rematch?
I think we have to see on how much XL adapted from last week, because one thing we've been criticizing on the side of Fnatic was their adaptation to the new patch. And for me, when I look at XL last week, this is what was missing. Maybe not the right priorities when it comes to draft. And when they faced off against each other, it was Fnatic falling behind in the early game. So that's what I want to look at here specifically.
GB?
I mean, I think that's really valid point. I think for XL as well, the early game will become the clear indicator. Fnatic looks like at times they struggle. Even if they have a late game scaling comp, if they do not have a member that gets ahead, it becomes difficult. Even looking back at the series they had last time against XL, it was only the game where Razork got ahead on a champion like Kindred that it felt like they had tools in the early game to actually drive the game forward. And when they didn't, XL just took over. So I'm curious to see what Fnatic is going to come through with the adaptations, because it is on them to come with the adaptations.
Okay, well, we did get some thoughts from XL's Patrick ahead of this matchup.
I think everything is on the line. There's a chance for first Worlds for XL. I mean, for me as well, for some of my teammates too. So it's really big and really important for us. It's not really similar thing for Fnatic. They go to Worlds almost every year, so I think we will want it a little bit more. So it's just going to be a lot of work and I think hard series against them, because when we played Fnatic the other time, they played Heretics before us, so I assume they were mostly focusing on them and then they weren't sure what to do versus us. Now it's like a whole different story, right? They have a lot of time to prepare, and so do we, so I think we just need to be on our toes.
That's true. They do have a lot of time to prepare, and they saw XL playing, but on the other hand, XL already played and XL already found out things about how they want to approach this game and how they want to approach this meta, right?
Yeah, I think it's been pretty clear how XL wants to approach the current patch. Problem being that Matt found a way to shut him down by banning Rumble, Maokai, Tristana every game. And I think just overall, they have to kind of refine themselves, and I hope that they've taken this last week to actually create new strategies that Fnatic couldn't have prepared for.
Yes, before we get into the strats, just a short reaction also about kind of the drive, what Lore was painting before the video as well in terms of XL. They've come so far. It would hurt so much to taper off now, but I think you can say similar things for Fnatic because they only really had their surge up at the end of the season.
Oh, absolutely. Fnatic's story has not been a successful story whatsoever. So for them as well, it's not not only just about making it further, it's a chance of redemption that's really lurking around, and specifically with the players that they've added. We said it earlier as well, but for Trimby not to be in at least a top 3 position has been unheard of for a very long time too. But the same thing can be said for Oamnet. There's a lot of different players here where missing it out and not being able to go further into Korea would be absolutely devastation.
Yeah, and Brock said the fact that if you're playing for Fnatic, you're of course part of an organization that has made it every time except for 2 and is now on a 6-year consecutive run in that regard. So the pressure is definitely high as well.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think no matter what team you're playing for in the LEC, there's going to be a lot of pressure and expectations. And especially if you're playing for Fnatic, if you don't go to Worlds, there's a very high chance you're going to be kicked going into next year. And
no one's safe.
All the players know that, so they know they have to step it up. Just like Excel wants to make it to Worlds, like Fnatic, they really don't have much of a choice.
They don't. And there's a couple of things that may have to change, right, Goldberg? We see it here behind us. You know, they had their resurgence, but then they went into the bracket stage and they couldn't keep it going. So what's going to be the key here?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I do know what the key is going to be, but I think it was so weird looking at what was currently happening in summer, because they were one of our top 2 teams, one of the best teams we had. But then when it came to a new patch in summer, everything just fell down, the tempo and all of these things, but also the way they drafted. It was not on par with the other teams in our summer playoffs format, because they were not on the Kaiser whatsoever, which back then was the most broken champion you could have. We saw a little bit of Ivor and not too much of it either, but it's just a lot of these OPs, example like the Rumble, they would pick it and they would lose with it. And it's just these situations you could not be allowed to see back then. And one of the reasons they even lost to Excel as well.
And maybe, Brock said, that is then a good thing that you're watching the series you have been watching in the meanwhile, especially yesterday where we saw the Ivern priority was through the roof.
I think in general for both of these teams, they're in an interesting position where Excel got completely exposed versus Mad Lions and have now had a week to find new strategies and to make sure the same thing doesn't happen against Fnatic. Fnatic, we haven't seen play for around a month, so, you know, they've also had a lot of time, but Excel doesn't even know, you know, what's coming because they've had a lot of time to prepare. And it's hard to say exactly how it's going to play out, which is what I love about this series. It could really go either way.
Yeah, I think it's the one where you have the hardest time predicting. Now we have these stats here behind us about why it was lacking for Fnatic coming into the bracket stage, and I want to pull up Razor's stats as well, because obviously this isn't to call him out. If nothing's working, it's not going to work for your jungler either, right, Broxa?
Sorry, go on.
He's the jungler.
He is
so
the
sorry.
jungler. I'm not going to take that.
So I think before we start harassing the poor jungler and turn this into a typical solo queue situation where the jungler gets scapegoated, it is really hard to be a jungler on a team that's not really functioning. And I think Fnatic have had moments this year where they were really on the same page. They played as a unit, and that made Razork show up as well. Whereas when things are not working so well, I think in general, if you look at a professional team, if you want to see if these guys are on the same page and if they have a good, you know, atmosphere, team cohesion, strategy, you look at a jungler. If it looks like the jungler is completely lost, it's usually because the strategies are not really on point and there's a lot of confusion.
Thank you for clearing that up.
That's why it was so weird as well during summer season, because Razork was genuinely the best jungler in LEC during the regular season of summer, and then all of a sudden nothing clicked there, and it just felt like too much of a shift for something to have happened in that team, because it was barely a couple of weeks until we got there. So I don't know what happened with it. I just feel like they really need to find themselves in a position again where they can rally behind Razork, because that's where they found all their success.
I think that is a great pointer for them. I think we can ask the same or similar questions for Excel. Excel, who were on a bit of a tear, but what happened versus the Mad Lions? Because that wasn't the Excel we know. Even though they got advantages, they accrued leads in some of the games, as we can see.
I know, like generally, a lot of the games were, you know, a bit longer. I think we're having a slower meta right now, and in some of them they were in a position where they could definitely take it away, but they kind of dropped the ball later in the game. And I think it was partly Excel not having, you know, the correct tools to actually close out games from ahead, but also Mad Lions having really, really good responses to like shut them down.
When you say tools, do you mean they didn't have the right draft or they didn't have the right decision making, or both?
I would say a mix of both, because there were situations a game in particular where Odo Amne was playing Renekton and he was really fed and he could easily have taken over the game. But Mad Lions just managed to shut him down immediately, and that 7-kill Crocodile literally couldn't play the game.
Yeah, I think the first game they had Corki Viego, which really didn't sync up together. But then in the other game you're speaking about, I think Mad Lions just really found a good strategy to shut down XL. XL had found a lot of their leads by finding these good early games, as we see behind us, then grouping up to rouse the objectives and just out-team fight them. So Mad Lions decided, we're never going to do that. We're going to spread out the map, and as soon as we see Odo responding to some of the split pushing, that's when we'll start corralling them. And you can see it in this scenario we have right here where Nisqy is playing the LeBlanc. I think this is a champion today, specifically with Humanoid and Arbit, that will also be pivotal together with the Jace, because if they can open up the side lanes, make Odo come to the other side of the map, and the rest of them have a 4v4 that benefits them, well, you can completely split XL apart, and that's what happened. Now, I do also want to say that it's not full credit to Mad Lions in this. They had really good moves, but I also think XL did make a lot of mistakes in this series that should not have been made, and it was a bit uncharacteristic from them from what we saw in summer. So I'm definitely hoping to see that they've ironed out some of the issues.
Yeah, that makes sense. And also, it's not because you say, oh, there is this game plan here with some of the champions like LeBlanc and you should spread out over the map. You can't just, it's not like you can just do that and it will work every single time. You also have to be adept at playing that style, I think, specifically split pushing, right? So overall, there's a lot to look forward to and a lot of question marks specifically for Fnatic. I want to touch on what Huni said. Huni said, I think Humanoid, the Humanoid he called him, is going to be the most important in this series because of what we've just talked about. Do you agree?
I definitely agree, because I think if Humanoid is having a really good day, if he can pressure and take over mid lane, Razork automatically is going to be playing amazing, because one of the key problems Fnatic have had this entire year has been that Razork is kind of a one-man army trying to find opportunities in early game and setting things up, and if no one helps him, they're just going to fall apart.
Yeah, I also think shout out to the support matchup in this one. Limit versus Trimpy is going to be quite pivotal as well. Champions like Rakan in terms of finding the initiators, specifically around the early objectives like Dragons, which is something XL found success with, but something Fnatic also had a lot with when they gave so much attention to Noah and Trimpy, is something that's going to matter in terms of finding good leeway into the mid game.
And final note, Broxa, you know, when it comes to this, you have a lot of players here that are very, very experienced, but you can probably speak to the fact that this is kind of endgame, possibly. This is your most important match that you have played all this year. Does that create different reactions, even in players that have seen this many, many times before?
I think right now both teams are in a really difficult situation, because earlier this year, they literally had nothing to lose. Backs against the wall. They didn't expect to be in this situation for sure, probably thought their year was over. And now, in their heads, they probably feel like they have everything to lose because they're so close to making it to Worlds. And I think that's really scary. They need to get out of that mindset. Don't think about the future and Worlds. That's irrelevant now. Just be in the moment, focus on your screen, be in your own little bubble with your monitor and just do your best. Because if you start overthinking it, you're going to be really afraid and you won't be able to make the game-winning plays.
Exactly. It's Fnatic and XL. They had a miraculous comeback in summer, but tonight only one of their runs will continue as they face off in our LG Ultra Gear Match of the Week.
Take down their demons. They beat SK and they go to playoffs.
Sending Fnatic to a showdown with XL.
And Odo sends his regards. XL are going to final.
One team's hopes and dreams will come to an end in this match of the week, as either XL or Fnatic's resurgence will come to a sudden halt. XL fell short to a reinvigorated Mad Lions.
Mad have guaranteed themselves a spot in Montpellier and the World Championship once more.
Now XL will have to fight for their survival in the tournament. There are no more second chances.
Right now, this team that we have, we play good under pressure. So I expect us to step it up and play way better than we did.
It will be the first time we've seen Fnatic in quite a while. In fact, their last appearance was a swift exit at the hands of none other than XL and Odo Amne.
Oh, they kept him alive! No one touched it! He's still alive! They're still alive! They're still alive! They're still alive! One and Odo Amne tries to get one in response. He gets it, goes into the bus and tries it. Enough! Odo survives, the double kills him off. No one tried to do it again, but he's pulled!
It's been a long journey, and I think today everyone was very, very confident, and everyone was like actually really excited and anxious to play.
Mercer pushing forward into the Magnet Storm, but it's VTO shut down. Kill secured for Fnatic, and Berlin comes alive. 1, 2, 3, make that a fourth on the board. Dredge line from Trimpy. Trimpy giveth and shouldn't be taken, but here comes Noah, backed up by Fnatic, and that is what we love to see from Fnatic's bot laner.
Very happy that we got to LEC the season finals, and then we have a chance to Worlds, even though our winter split and spring split were...
It's do or die. Fail here and your year ends. You do not make Worlds, you do not make Montpellier. Here is where you need to make it count.